Sir. Welcome to this session about the burden of adverse drug reactions and the need for safety monitoring of medicinal products. Pharmacovigilance always starts with the patient taking a medicine and suffering an unwanted effect and a suspicion that there is a connection between the two. Adverse drug reactions can have negative impact on the health of the patient, on the quality of life, and on his or her willingness to continue the treatment. In the worst cases, they can even be fatal. According to a memo from the European Commission, 200,000 deaths in Europe each year are believed to be caused by adverse drug reactions. What impact do adverse drug reactions have on healthcare? There have been several studies assessing how often ADRs lead to hospital admissions or visits to the emergency room. A meta-analysis published in 2001 identified 68 studies examining the percentage of hospital admissions that were related to adverse drug reactions. In all studies combined, 123,000 hospital admissions were assessed, and in total 4.9% of these admissions were judged to be related to an ADR. The elderly population had a considerably higher rate compared to the non-elderly. The percentage of patients hospitalized due to adverse drug reactions varied between 0.2 and 41%. Now imagine that your ward has 20 beds. That means that somewhere between 1 to 8 of those beds might be occupied by a patient who is in hospital because they have suffered an adverse drug reaction. A more recent meta-analysis concluded that almost half of the adverse drug reaction that led to either emergency visits or continued inpatient treatment were considered by the researchers to be preventable. The burden in both inpatient settings and outpatient settings is substantial. The studies that I have mentioned capture only those patients who seek medical care. Furthermore, the majority of studies that have been conducted assessing the impact of adverse drug reactions on healthcare have been performed in either Europe or North America, showing a gap of knowledge for a large part of the world. Do you know of any studies assessing the impact of adverse drug reactions in your own setting? In addition to the human suffering caused by adverse drug reaction, they can also carry a financial cost. The cost to society can be divided into direct costs, such as costs for hospitalization, treatment, and emergency visits, and indirect costs, which are linked to decreased productivity, missed days of work, and disability. To give you an idea about the magnitude of the problem, the US FDA has estimated that the costs for drug-related morbidity and mortality is higher than the cost for cardiovascular care in the United States. In clinical trials, we will only detect adverse drug reactions that are common and are often linked to the pharmacological properties or the pharmacokinetics of the drug in question. Certain age groups, as well as pregnant women, are usually not included in these trials. The selection of patients does not match real-life use of the medicines, where a patient might be suffering from several diseases and taking many medicines. Furthermore, after market approval, the drug might be used off-label. So this is why all medicines, once approved, should be monitored for any potential safety issue through pharmacovigilance. In addition to the beneficial outcomes that medicines can have, they can also cause harm to patients. How can we reduce this burden? This is where pharmacovigilance comes in. The overall aim of pharmacovigilance is a safer and more effective use of medicines for everyone by improving patient care and safety in relation to the use of medicines. This includes prevention of unnecessary harm to patients, detecting and investigating problems related to the use of medicines, and communicating such findings in a timely manner. This includes investigating new aspects of already known adverse effects, contributing to the overall benefit-harm assessments of medicines, encouraging safe and rational use of medicines, including cost-effectiveness, and strengthening the public's confidence in medicinal products and healthcare.
This lesson is about the scope of pharmacovigilance. In the beginning, pharmacovigilance was very drug-centered and mainly concerned with the detection of adverse effects. Over time, the focus has shifted from the drug to the patient, and the scope of pharmacovigilance has been extended. The WHO definition of pharmacovigilance from 2002 ends with any other drug-related problems. In this lesson, you will get an overview of some of these problems. In addition to adverse effects, there are quite a few safety problems related to the use of medicines. For example, medication errors, drug interactions, off-label use, abuse, and antimicrobial resistance. A medication error is an unintended failure in the drug treatment process that leads to, or has the potential to lead to, harm to the patient. For example, a drug could be wrongly prescribed by a doctor, wrongly dispensed by a pharmacist or nurse, or administered incorrectly by a patient. Since most medication errors are a result of system failures, for example, lack of staff resulting in a heavy workload, it's important to have a culture where individuals are not blamed and punished, but to instead identify the underlying causes and take proper action to prevent the same error from happening again. A drug interaction occurs when the effects of one drug are changed in the presence of another drug, food, or drink. A drug interaction can make a drug more or less effective. Although many interactions are well known, irrational combinations are still prescribed, causing unwanted side effects. Many patients, especially the elderly, may take several medicines each day. Obviously, the risk of developing an undesired drug interaction increases with the number of medicines used. Off-label use means situations where a medicinal product is intentionally used for a medical purpose not in accordance with the terms of the marketing authorization. For example, when a different indication, route of administration, or dosage is used, or when a medicine is used in a different age group. Previously, children were usually excluded from clinical trials, resulting in a lack of data and the need for special dosage adjustments. New legislation has increased the number of medicines licensed for pediatric use, but there is still room for improvement. Abuse, misuse, and related events is when a medicinal product is intentionally used in a manner that deviates from the prescribed pattern, which can have serious medical consequences. The morbidity and mortality associated with non-therapeutic use of medicines are rising, and there is a need to implement strategies to cope with this growing health problem. Antimicrobial resistance is the ability of microorganisms to survive in the presence of antimicrobials. New resistance mechanisms are emerging and spreading, threatening our ability to treat common infectious diseases. This is a major threat to global health that requires global collaboration and action. Without effective antimicrobials, medical procedures such as organ transplantation, cancer chemotherapy, and major surgery become very risky. Drug resistance is also starting to complicate the fight against HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria. Another area of pharmacovigilance is safety problems related to the quality of medicines. This includes poor manufacturing practice, substandard and falsified medical products, and lack of efficacy. Poor manufacturing, storage, or distribution practice is when the quality standards specified in the GXP system are not met. In addition to good manufacturing practice, there are also guidelines on best practices for storage, transportation, and distribution of pharmaceuticals to ensure that medical products remain of high quality all the way to the patient. If these quality standards are not met, it may lead to product contamination, wrong amount of active ingredient, or incorrect labels, resulting in ineffective treatment, adverse effects, or even death. Poor manufacturing practice may generate substandard medical products, which are authorized products that fail to meet the quality standards and/or specifications. Falsified medical products deliberately misrepresents their identity, composition, or source, for example, by containing the wrong amount of the active ingredient, no active ingredient at all, or other ingredients. This is another major concern affecting the whole world, since these products harm patients and undermine confidence in medicines and healthcare. WHO estimates that 10% of all medicines in low and middle income countries are substandard or falsified, and in some countries it may be as much as 50%. There is an urgent need for effective global collaboration to minimize the risks from such products. Lack of efficacy is defined as unexpected failure of a drug to produce the intended effect, as determined by previous scientific investigation. Since lack of efficacy may be a consequence of poor manufacturing practice or substandard and falsified medicines, it could indicate a quality problem. Lack of efficacy may have serious implications for the patient. For example, if an antibiotic does not treat an infection due to drug resistance or a defect drug, or if a contraceptive product fails, resulting in an unintended pregnancy. A third area of pharmacovigilance is immunization programs or other public health programs which focus on preventing and managing the most important diseases affecting the population. The objective is to promote health and reduce morbidity and mortality due to major common diseases like HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria. It is common to expose large populations to a medicine to prevent the disease, although only a small proportion of the population is affected. One example of this is the neglected tropical disease lymphatic filariasis, where almost 1 billion people at risk are treated, but less than 15% are infected. The goal is to eliminate the disease as a public health problem. Since the drugs used in public health programs may be new with incomplete safety profiles or have very limited safety information for the specific target population, it's important to have a system in place to monitor safety. There are generally good treatment records in public health programs, but adverse drug reactions are rarely recorded. Public health programs and pharmacovigilance systems often operate in silos, so there is a need to integrate the two and improve collaboration.